You look very young in person. I don't know, 15, 16 maybe?
Well, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and
Picture this. It is 1991. You are one of the most recognizable faces in America. You have a Spielberg film on your resume, a cult classic, a poster that lived on more teenage bedroom walls than almost anything else from that decade. Steven Spielberg, Joe Dante, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Sean Penn, Nicolas Cage. These are the names on your filmography. The phone rings. Steve Martin wants you. Father of the Bride, a guaranteed $100 million hit. The kind of film that doesn't fail. The kind of film that extends careers by a decade. You say no, not because you hate the role, not because of some creative principle. You're pregnant and you have made a quiet decision. One that nobody told you to make. One that nobody fully understood for about 30 years. No announcement, no statement, just no. That decision, repeated quietly again and again across the next few years, is the entire story of Phoebe Cates. And it's a much stranger and more interesting story than Hollywood ever wanted to tell. Before we talk about what she chose, we need to talk about what she was handed, because there is a version of this story that Hollywood loves. Girl from entertainment family, striking looks, discovers acting, becomes iconic, disappears mysteriously. It's the kind of story the industry uses as proof that the whole machine is romantic. But that version leaves out the most important part. She was at Juilliard at age 10. Not Saturday dance class, not a local studio, Juilliard. 3.5 years of rigorous daily training. She was going to be a dancer. That wasn't a fantasy, it was a plan, an identity, a future she could already feel. Her knee gave out at 14. Now, stop for a second and put yourself there. You are 14 years old. You have spent a third of your entire life training for one specific thing. Your body, your discipline, your entire sense of self is organized around that thing. And in one moment, one bad landing, one ordinary day, it's gone. What do you do with that? For most people, grief, confusion, a long detour. For Phoebe Cates, she pivoted within months, found a new path, and, this is the part worth remembering, kept looking for the feeling. That specific feeling that dance had given her. She didn't stop wanting it. She just had to find another door. We'll come back to the moment she finally found it. But first, what the industry saw when it looked at her, and what she saw when she looked back. Modeling came first. By 14, she was already on the cover of 17. 4 times that year alone. Then Elle, British Vogue, Andy Warhol's Interview. The kind of trajectory that agents build careers around. She hated it. She told People magazine it didn't teach her anything, that it was the same thing over and over, that after a while she only kept doing it for the money. Let that land for a second. You are 14 years old. Adults are paying you to exist. They are putting your face on magazines and telling you that you are exactly what the world wants. And somewhere inside you, you are thinking, this is hollow. This is not the thing. That is not a normal reaction. Most people at 14 would be blinded by it. She was already looking past it. Already asking a question that most people don't think to ask until their 40s, if ever, is this mine? Or is this just what other people decided I should be? Acting arrived the way things tend to in New York in that era, through the right party and the right introduction. A film agent at Studio 54, a screen test, and then her first real role, Paradise, 1982. A tropical film marketed as the edgier answer to The Blue Lagoon. The role required nudity. She was 17. Think about that moment. You're a teenager, you have doubts. You go to your father for guidance. And your father, a man who has spent his entire adult life in this industry, looks at you and says, how can you even question a lead in a feature film? So she did it. And she later said it taught her exactly one thing. Never to do a movie like that again. That's not bitterness, that's not a complaint. That is a person filing away information about who she is and what she will and will not do at 17. Later that same year came Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And this one was different. She had the most fun filming that movie. She'd say so herself. The role of Linda Barrett, the older friend, the one who already understood how the world worked, fit something in her. She played it with a warmth and a dry intelligence that wasn't on the page. The pool scene happened, moving in stereo by the cars, red bikini. Rolling Stone would eventually call it the most memorable bikini drop in cinema history. She was 19 years old, and from that moment, that specific 60 seconds of footage, the industry decided who Phoebe Cates was. The problem, for them, was that she had already made a different decision about that. 2 years later, Gremlins, directed by Joe Dante, executive produced by Spielberg. One of the biggest films of 1984. Over $200 million at the box office. She played Kate Barringer, the girlfriend role technically, the human anchor while rubber creatures destroyed everything around her. But then there's the Christmas monologue. If you've seen it, you know the one. Her character quietly, in the middle of a PG monster comedy, explains how her father died. He had dressed as Santa Claus to surprise the family. He got stuck in the chimney. They didn't find him until Christmas morning. It is bleak. It is darkly absurd. It stops the entire movie cold, and she delivers it with absolute calm. The kind of performance that makes you forget for 30 seconds that you were watching a creature feature. Nobody cast her in that scene to show range, but there it was anyway. And 1984, The same year that Gremlins poster was everywhere was also the year she walked into the Joseph Papp Public Theater in New York for rehearsals of an off-Broadway play. Nobody reported on that part. Here's the question nobody thought to ask Phoebe Cates in 1984. While your face is on 100,000 movie posters, while teenage boys are pausing their VHS tapes, and you are on the cover of every magazine that matters, what are you actually doing on a Tuesday night? She was doing theater, not the career move kind, not a Broadway showcase designed to signal seriousness to the trades. A Soviet play at a downtown New York theater. Small stage, 40-seat house, no special effects, no studio notes, no director who needed the girlfriend to be more sympathetic in Act 2 because the test audience felt confused, and she gave one interview about what it felt like.
For me, I felt a certain freedom and a certain connection with acting that I had never really felt before. So that probably was my turning point.
She described it as feeling a certain freedom, a certain connection with acting that she had never really felt before. Think about that sentence. She has just been in the biggest film of the summer. She has a Spielberg credit. She is 20 years old and her face is known in 40 countries. And the moment she feels most alive as a performer is on a 40-seat stage in Lower Manhattan. That tells you everything about what was happening inside this story. The industry, meanwhile, was seeing something else entirely. What the industry saw in Phoebe Cates was a very specific product. Beautiful, bankable, safe. The girl the boys wanted and the girls weren't threatened by. She could open a film, she could sell a poster, she knew how to be funny without making anyone uncomfortable. Private School. In 1983, Another Desirable Girlfriend. In another teen comedy. Date with an Angel. In 1987. A fantasy romance that didn't quite connect. Bright Lights. Big City. In 1988. She held her own, opposite Michael J. Fox at peak fame. And all the while, theater, off-Broadway in 1984, off-Broadway again in 1986, Broadway debut in December 1989, the same year she got married. In 1988, she told an interviewer plainly, there were simply not that many good parts for women in film. That theater had far more, that it was in her own words what she liked doing most. She wasn't complaining. She wasn't performing dissatisfaction for a journalist. She was describing, with the precision of someone who had already figured something out, a reality that most people in her position would never say out loud. Now think about what it takes to say that. You are at the peak of your Hollywood career. Every studio wants to cast you, every magazine wants your face, and you are sitting in an interview telling the truth about what matters to you, even knowing exactly what the industry will do with it. That is not a person who is confused about who she is. That is a person who has known for years, and has been quietly, patiently, waiting for everyone else to stop deciding for her. And then, Kevin Kline. She met him at an audition for The Big Chill in 1983. She didn't get the part. Meg Tilly did. By every Hollywood logic, this is the story of a rejection. The door that didn't open. But the room contained Kevin Kline, and she walked out of an audition she lost with something more important than the role. He wasn't sure about her at first. He actually told an interviewer he remembered thinking, she's too happy to be with me. She's too enthusiastic about life. What'll we talk about? They had a lot to talk about. They married in 1989. Owen arrived in 1991. Greta in 1994. The agreement between them was practical. Whoever was less busy would stay home with the children. They would alternate. Neither career would devour the other. On paper, it was a fair deal. In practice, Kline's career never slowed down. He won the Oscar. He worked with the best directors alive. He did Shakespeare. He did comedy. He didn't stop. And every time the calendar came around to her slot, every time it was theoretically her turn, she looked at her kids and she chose to stay. Not because anyone told her to, not because the industry shut its doors, because she had been asking herself the same question since she was 14 years old. Is this mine? Or is this just what other people decided I should be? And the answer, every time she looked at her children, was clear. But here's what the tidy version of this story misses. It wasn't all a serene, graceful exit. There was a middle act a few years in the early 90s, where the story got strange and raw and more interesting than either the rise or the departure. Drop Dead Fred, 1991. You need to know about this film. Not because it was a success it wasn't, but because of what Phoebe did with it. The premise, a woman falling apart emotionally, is visited by her anarchic childhood imaginary friend, played by Rick Mayall at full unhinged volume. It's loud, it's messy, critics hated it. But underneath all that noise, Drop Dead Fred is actually a film about trauma, about the version of yourself you had to bury to survive childhood, about what happens when that buried self finally comes back, and you don't have the vocabulary to handle it. Phoebe played Elizabeth timid, suppressed, trying to be good enough for a world that keeps telling her she isn't. Now think about who she was at that moment in her actual life. She has spent nearly a decade being asked to play fantasy, the desirable friend, the love interest, the face on the poster. She has given interviews saying she wanted more than what film was offering. She has been doing serious stage work that nobody writes about. And here is a role where the entire emotional point is a woman reclaiming herself from the image everyone projected onto her. She didn't choose that film accidentally. It bombed, critically eviscerated, And if you have spent any time watching how this industry treats actresses, you know what a failed film does. It doesn't just sit on your resume. It becomes the story people tell about your judgment. She had one more film in her, Princess Caribou, 1994. A period comedy where she played a mysterious woman who may or may not be who she claims to be, a woman whose entire identity is a performance, a question mark, something the people around her keep trying to define, and she keeps refusing to confirm. That was her last film. Not a goodbye. There was no speech, no farewell interview, no announcement. Just a last film, and then an absence where the next role should have been. And the industry, which had spent a decade deciding who she was, found itself talking to a dial tone.
For a person so young, was that a difficult decision to make that you'd say, okay, I'll do this now?
Nope.
Really?
In 2005, Phoebe Cates opened a shop, Blue Tree, 1283 Madison Avenue, New York City, Upper East Side, a few blocks from her apartment. It sells women's clothing, jewelry, candles, vintage records, art books, obscure European toys, antiques, perfume, small, strange, beautiful things from all over the world that you didn't know you needed until you saw them. She runs it herself, she's often behind the counter, and here's the detail that keeps coming back. Some of her customers don't recognize her. Some of them tell her she looks like Phoebe Cates. She smiles and says she gets that a lot. Think about what that moment contains. A woman who was on more magazine covers than almost anyone in the 1980s, standing behind a counter on Madison Avenue, and someone says, "You know who you look like." She doesn't correct them. She doesn't perform the reveal. She just smiles. That is either the most serene thing in the world or the most quietly triumphant, depending on how you look at it. She told USA today she had always wanted a general store, that if she could have had a photo booth and sold candy, she would have. She described the specific moment the dream stopped being something she was waiting for someone else to create, when she finally said to herself,
saying somebody should really open a really cool, little store. And then finally I just said, that someone's me.
3 words, the same economy of decision that runs through her entire story. Kevin Kline, at a red carpet in Toronto in 2024, their 35th anniversary year, talked about her the way people talk about someone they are genuinely still surprised they get to be with. He said she had her head on her shoulders, unlike him. That he usually had his head on her shoulders too. That she was a great wife, a great mother, a great person, and that she keeps him honest. Then he paused, except in interviews. Their son Owen is now a filmmaker. He directed Funny Pages, which premiered at Cannes in 2022. Their daughter Greta records music under the name Frankie Cosmos, intimate, prolific, with a following that is intensely loyal in the way only independently built audiences ever are. The creativity didn't stop, it didn't vanish. It just changed shape, moved into different hands. Became something that didn't require a studio's permission, or a poster, or a 60-second moment that someone could pause and replay and project onto forever. In 2015, she lent her voice to a Gremlins video game, reprising Kate Berenger, which means the door was never completely closed. It just stopped being the only door. And Blue Tree is still open, 20 years in, on a street where most boutiques last 18 months.
Oh, you had knee surgery?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, what was that like?
Harrowing.
So here's the question this story is actually asking. We talk about Phoebe Cates as someone who walked away from Hollywood. But what if that's the wrong verb entirely? She trained at Juilliard at 10, she modeled at 14, and found it hollow. She took a role at 17 because her father asked her to and filed away what she learned. She delivered a devastating monologue inside a creature feature because she found the real scene and played it. She spent the peak years of her film career doing serious theater that nobody covered. She said out loud in 1988 that film didn't have enough for her. She chose Drop Dead Fred, a film about a woman reclaiming herself. She turned down a guaranteed hit because something else mattered more. At every single decision point in this story, she asked the same question, is this mine? Or is this just what someone else decided I should be? That's not walking away. That's knowing where you were going the entire time. Jennifer Jason Leigh, who has known her for over 40 years, who made her last film as a favor to her, sat down with her for Interview magazine in 2018 and said, I knew from the moment we met that you were someone I wanted to be around, because you were funny and with it and smart and savvy. And then she added 4 more words, and a little bit evil. That assessment still holds.
When you go out in public now, do people hound you and follow you and come up to you on the streets and stuff?
Sometimes, yeah.
And do you like that?
So long as they don't touch me.